How's it going, everybody? It's Sam here at GamerSense, and today we're going to be diving into Convergence, a League of Legends story, a highly anticipated release from Riot Forge that follows one of League's favorite characters, Echo, and his plight to make Zaun a safer and better place for all of its residents. In this review, we're going to be exploring every single aspect of the game, from its captivating storyline to its honestly pretty innovative gameplay mechanics that really brought about a fantastic and special game. So let's just jump right into it and find out if Convergence is really worth your time and money. Alright, so moving into a little bit of background on the game if you guys haven't been following it. Convergence is the newest release developed by a smaller studio called Stallion, and it is published by Riot Forge. Stallion is a studio that looks like they primarily focus on 2D games, and this is definitely looking to be their largest endeavor yet. I would say if the quality of those other games are anything like this one, I would definitely recommend you check them out. There's just 2 other games, and I bet they're probably pretty decent. But anyways, moving into this, taking place in the sprawling city of Zaun, you will follow Echo as you fight to kind of defend the residents of Zaun from a lot of the powers from both Zaun and Piltover in this action 2D platformer. And it has been a hot minute since I played a platformer, and it was a blast. So you'll get to meet a lot of new and familiar faces from the League universe. And for me, I think this is just one of the most interesting and in-depth explanations of lore for this area that we've gotten so far. And if you're a big fan of League and just kind of the games that Riot are producing in this League universe, they're going to be able to use all this in the MMO and any other game going forward. So the studio did a fantastic job introducing this lore, and they have said that it is canon, so you'll most likely see this in other places like, say, Legends of Runeterra and stuff like that. And this game in particular kind of looks at the struggles that both Zaun and Piltover and all of these characters have in these 2 divided cities. So let's just get into the story. Not going into anything too in-depth because I want you guys to experience it yourself. You're going to begin in the Undercity of Zaun with Echo kind of seeing this giant spire that is owned by one of the famous Chemtech Baron families, the Poindestras, which is led by Zarkon and Drake and Vale Poindestra, who you'll run into a lot in the game. And this spire kind of leads to Zaun getting into an extremely dangerous situation as this new technology, new energy source that are similar to Hextech crystals, which power a lot of the technological advances, such as like Echo Z Drive, just both in Piltover and Zaun, is kind of spread all across Zaun. Now, the negative, though, is that these crystals, they're called Syntixi crystals, they are super duper unstable. They lead to a lot of explosions. They're just extremely unsafe, but they are highly available, so people in Zaun are going to end up using them more often, and it just leads to this extremely dangerous situation in Zaun. Some of the things that do use these Syntixi crystals are Jinx chain chompers. So if you guys play League of Legends, that's her E. Those are those little grenades that she puts on the ground, and if you step on them, you can't move. That's just one of the examples. Highly unstable, makes big explosions. Obviously, Jinx is going to love them. And you'll run into a couple other groups like Clan Pharos, who are the largest producers of Hextech crystals in Piltover. Someone you might know from Clan Pharos that you will run into in the game is going to be Camille. You also will get to interact with the Inxes, who are the fan club of the one and only Jinx. You will definitely know when you run into them. It is very, very hard to miss if you know anything about Jinx, or maybe you watched Arcane, things like that. It's really, really funny. So I don't want to bore you too much or kind of give away any potential big spoilers, but for me, as a fan of League, the in-depth lore that you get from this game is particularly amazing, even from some of the side characters, so it is pretty fantastic in regards to story. But now kind of moving into gameplay, it's a story-driven 2D action platformer with a wealth of combat and honestly an insane amount of innovation when it comes to the gameplay features that you're given. There aren't too many forced interactions in this game. Like, you're not going to be forced into chatting with people, and the few times that you do, there's very, very few lines of chat, so it's not really too much. They don't really waste any of your time. I would say the developers did a fantastic job really like cherishing your time when it comes to this game. And for the most part, you are given free reign of Zaun to do with it as you please. There are areas that are going to be blocked off For the most part, though, as long as you kind of go with the story, you will be given everything that you need, specifically at the time that you need it. And once you unlock that, you'll be able to go take care of all those little secret areas that you needed that technology for in the future. Again, I really feel like the developers did a fantastic job not wasting your time and just making sure that everything was very straightforward, while also giving the player the ability to kind of choose how you want to go about playing this game. And this kind of leads us to some of the best mechanics that I've ever seen in a platformer, just in regards to both combat and movement in the game. The movement is very, very, very responsive. I will say that they did a very fantastic job, especially something that's so important in a platformer is movement. And you want to make sure that you have pinpoint precision, because there are some areas where you have to do things very precisely. And if you don't, it's going to kind of make you fail that mission or possibly even die. So They do a fantastic job with this very, very responsive movement. And on top of that, if you know anything about Echo, you'll know that he is all about inventing, and his main invention, something that we talked about earlier, is that Z drive. Now, the Z drive, if you don't know already, gives him the ability to play with time, and this is just a ginormous part of this game, both story-wise, combat-wise, and movement-wise. And I really think they did a fantastic job integrating this into this platformer. So while the story is very linear, the tools that you're given really make it a very unique experience for each player. I'm sure there's a lot of people that got through this game doing things completely different than I would have ever thought, and I'm sure there's a lot of people playing very, very unique different ways. And I think that's definitely the biggest highlight that I will get from this game, is that you will have a very personalized experience, and I think that is just so fantastic. And you'll also get to interact with a lot of Echo's other inventions like Time Winder, Parallel Convergence, Chrono Break. I'm pretty sure you're seeing the theme. If it relates to Echo or kind of his abilities from League of Legends, you'll most likely see it here. And you will also get access to additional inventions that Echo makes along his life, basically. And these all basically will optimize or enhance the main abilities that you have, and this also just adds into that uniqueness for every single player, because I'm sure there's other people making different things that I didn't even consider, and they have very specific reasoning for why they did that, and it's just so unique. Now, the biggest thing that I will say in this game, definitely the highlight core mechanic, is going to be rewind. As I've said previously, Echo really does mess around with time. That is highlighted many times in this game. It's almost like it's the main theme, basically, along with the growth of Echo's character, basically. But the rewind feature is, I think, what makes this game so fantastic. Now, rewind is something that you are able to do a limited amount of times, but you're able to pick up things that basically recharge this rewind for you. So it's not something that you're really limited too much by, and there are ways to enhance it. But basically, this rewind, say you get in a fight with some enemies and you took a little bit more damage than you wanted to, or you just think that you could do it better, you can rewind between 5 to 10 seconds, and it just goes backwards. I mean, everything you just did comes back. It's pretty straightforward, and that makes it so that you can play these things so many different ways. Even if you won the fight and you just really think that you can do it better, you could just rewind 5 to 10 seconds back. And for the most part, you're not going to be staying in combat for too long, maybe like 30 seconds outside of some of the boss fights. So this rewind ability really gives you the just free reign on these fights and how you want to interact with these enemies. Same thing with the movement. There's a lot of situations where there are features in the game that will one-shot you, and it's just they make it so that it forces you to use this rewind feature. And while it's frustrating because there are some things that you don't have to exactly be pixel perfect, but pretty damn close, this is definitely going to make you use that rewind feature. And it's fun because you can do things multiple different ways, and you could stop exactly, like, say you press space and you jumped the wrong way on accident, you could just rewind 2 seconds and just fix that error. And I think that makes it really fun, because so many people will be able to play it differently. So many different people will have things that are like, hey, I think I could really do that better. And I think that is so fantastic, because it's very forgiving, especially for new players. And I feel like that is a really big highlight here. I would say Riot in general tends to lean towards user-friendly type games. I would say both League of Legends, Valorant, they're both simpler versions of other games in the genre that are more new user-friendly. And I believe that Convergence did that very well, because this platformer is very demanding And if you're not someone who's played the platformer genre before, some of these movements are going to be a little difficult. And having that rewind is kind of just like, it takes away all the stress basically from having to do something perfectly. So even if you do end up using all your rewinds and kind of have to going back to a checkpoint, generally you're only going to waste like 5 seconds of your time. So it's really not that detrimental if you aren't able to do something. So I think that is one of the key features in this game. Definitely think that is something that made it so fantastic. But enough about all the gameplay stuff. If you guys want to play the game, it's going to be fantastic. But moving into the graphics is it's a very fun graphic style. Kind of reminds me more of a little bit older, more retro, but also newer, because everything is much more well defined. There's a lot of detail that goes into the characters, that goes into the background characters, that even goes into just the background. And I think that's what makes it very interesting. There's a lot of unique places in Zaun that you'll run into, and each of these regions kind of have their own unique flora and fauna. And while you will see a lot of the same enemies with just kind of a different color scheme, like they just threw a different chroma over it, they do usually at least have some type of unique feature depending on what environment that you are in. And I think that is more than enough for a game of this size. You don't really need that much uniqueness. It's just they need to be very fun, basically. And I think the developers did a fantastic job in creating this. Just lastly, moving into replayability, there's a lot of things that you can do. I don't want to say that the game is ginormous. It's maybe about like, if you were to do everything, I bet it would take you about 10 to 15 hours, and that is collecting all of the collectibles in the game, that is collecting all of the hidden items, things of that nature. The game itself runs about like 5 to 10 hours depending on how quickly you go through it, and if you're doing any of the side stuff. For me personally, I tried to not do too much of the side events, and I finished the game in a little bit under 6 hours. So if you're looking for something that's really gonna like hold a lot of your time, this might not be that in particular. If you're new to the genre, I do think that this is a fantastic game for you to get into, especially if this is going to be your first platformer, as it is very kind to you, has great story, really fun mechanics, and they did a very good job making it very responsive. But if you're really like big into platformers and you're looking for something very immense, this probably won't be the game for you, just specifically because there's maybe about 15 to 30 hours, being 30 being generous, of gameplay, basically. Going around everything, getting all of the lore, getting all of the chests, finding all the collectibles. So if you're really looking for something to sink your time into, this might not be the choice for you. But if you're looking just for a really fantastic experience, and that's what matters more to you, not exactly the dollar per hour thing that we have in gaming, but more just like a fantastic story experience, especially if you're a big League of Legends fan, this is definitely going to be the game for you. And then lastly, just moving into technical performance, I didn't really run into too many bugs. I only broke the game one time, and I had to just load from a checkpoint, which wasn't the end of the world. I did something that I probably just got stuck in a corner, kind of, and there was no coming back from that because just nothing was moving. It was unfortunate. But other than that, the game ran very smoothly. Everything was very responsive. There wasn't any glitches. I didn't fall through walls. I didn't not grab onto walls when I was supposed to be grabbing onto walls. Everything was very responsive. Everything that you were supposed to interact with did interact with you very well. And there was nothing that really was like, wow, I cannot play this game anymore because this bug just ruins it. I also didn't really look too hard in regards to kind of exploits and stuff of that nature, but I can't imagine you would have fun playing this game if you exploited anything, because the game is very forgiving and the game gives you everything that you need. So if you just play the game, you're going to enjoy everything it has to offer you. So overall, guys, I definitely want to say this game is like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. I definitely do think that it is worth your money if you're just looking for a fantastic experience, especially if you're into League of Legends, because this is really doing a fantastic job on expanding on the already amazing lore that you're going to have more of in the future with the Riot MMO, and hopefully a lot more of these smaller studio games that are coming from Riot Forge. So in general, highly recommended, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed the video, and even if you didn't, definitely like and subscribe, because I will see you on the next one. Feel free to watch the full gameplay. I did release everything that I recorded, so if you just want to watch the game instead of playing the game, save yourself the $30. Definitely feel free to do that. It is a very fun watch. So as always, guys, hope to see you on the next one. Thank you.